morning, everyone. I'm starting a series of workshop videos focused on creating a logo, and there's 2 or 3 different ways to go about doing it, but I thought I would start out by just doing a quick video on setting up your workspace in Photoshop to be as efficient as possible when editing. I think it'll improve your experience overall, and nothing to say that what I'm showing you is the absolute best way. Everybody will personalize their own. But I thought I would show you, if you're fairly new to Photoshop and feeling a little uncomfortable about how best to utilize it, some things I learned, unfortunately, later in my process that made it a lot easier for me in terms of keeping track of what I was doing and having access to the tools that were in the that are in the window. So let's get started on that. So here we are in Photoshop, and my display may look a little different than yours in that I'm on a 4K monitor. So my display resolution may be a little different, and some of the things that show up on my screen may not show up on yours because you need to scroll down or resize or something like that. But if we're looking at it, and I'm going to turn on my little highlighter here so that it'll be easier to follow. But if we're looking at the basic Photoshop screen that comes up, this, if you go up to Window under Workspace, this is the photography workspace. This is the default that Photoshop presents to you when you open it. Now, if for whatever reason yours is different because you moved something, changed something, and you just want to try to follow along with me, if you just click on Reset Photography, it should take it all back to this same layout that you see on my screen here. So let's talk a little bit about the things that I do that make it efficient for me to work. And one of the first things that I'll do is the adjustments thing over here with all the different adjustment tools. It may be presented to you in a single layer like this, or you may have it as the grid with the icons. Either way, I'm going to tell you to right click and close that. And I'll explain why in a minute. And then libraries, same way. For right now, right click, close that. So you're probably going to have layers, channels, and paths. And until you get far more advanced, you're probably not going to be messing with channels or paths, but I'm not going to worry about those right now. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to click on this tab right here, the little play button, and you get an Actions and History tab. And what we want to do is we want to take this History tab and we want to drag it down until we get the blue bar right at the bottom of the screen. And so now we have our History tab that's in this same panel with our Layers tab. And I'm going to click on that and give me a little more room here. And then I want to bring my Actions tab, and we're going to put it down here in the exact same panel. So we have History and Actions together, and up here we have Layers, Channels, and Paths. So this gives us kind of a good layout here. We can see our history of changes we've made. We can see, similar to what you see in Lightroom, for those that use Lightroom, there's a history, you can see what you've done. And then we have our layers. And I'll bring an image in here shortly to show us kind of how that works together. The next thing we want to do is we're going to come over here, and here's all of our tools, our brushes, our clone stamp, our gradients, our sharpening, dodging, burning, text, all of that, and it's way over here. So we're going to drag that. If you noticed, I clicked on the very top part of it there, and we're going to drag this over here. And as you drag it over, you'll get a blue line right there. You want to keep going until you get to the next blue line right there and drop it into place. So now we have our tools right next to our layers, our Histogram Navigator, History, Actions, all of it in one spot. And that's much more efficient than going back and forth across the screen to grab a tool, to go to a layer, to go to an adjustment layer, to look at history, to go back to a tool. So having them all in one spot, to me, is just very efficient. And so we want to put that there. And then we want to add, because you're going to use brushes, probably wind up using them frequently. So we want to go up to Window, and we want to click on Brush Settings. And we're going to get 2 things. We're going to get our brush settings and our brushes. And you can see here we have our brush settings is this icon right here, and it's been added to this one tall skinny panel. And if we click on brushes, now we've got our brushes right here. And so having those right there handy is important, particularly because of logos. And if you're wanting to place a logo on your image, how you can go about doing that is going to be important to have the brushes right next to your tools and your layers and everything that's going to go on with that. So we've done that. I want to talk about Histogram and Navigator quickly. And I reposition Navigator here and have my histogram next to it. And part of the reason for that is I do a lot of my structural edits in Photoshop. And so I'm really interested in my Navigator taking me to pieces of the parts of my image that I want to work on. The histogram I use more of in Lightroom only because it's where I do most of my brightness and color toning and stuff like that. I can do all of that in Photoshop, but I just find it a little simpler over in Lightroom. So, but it's a pretty small panel, and if I bring in an image, let me just open a recent image, and it opens in Adobe Camera Raw because I opened it straight from within Photoshop. I'll get rid of my neck effects collection. Okay, so here's my Navigator tool, and you can see the image is pretty small. So if I drop down below it here, I can enlarge that. And so I like to get it just big enough that I can kind of see a little better. And the way I use it, the best way is if I hold down the Alt key and then use the wheel on my mouse, I can zoom in. And let's say I'm working on this area and I know that I want to go work in the upper right too. So I can hold down the space bar and drag the image. But to me, it's easier to come up here with this little red box and take it exactly where I want to go. It's also easy to pan around the image using this. So I use this Navigator tool quite a bit. A little shortcut, if you hold down the Alt key and click on the layer, it'll expand the image to fit your screen. So down here are all those adjustment layers that were previously in that adjustment panel. So they're all right here. So you could click on one, add an adjustment layer of some kind to your image if you want. And so your layers will build up here, and then your history will build up down here. And so it's easy to go back and forth. If I want to go to open, notice that layer disappeared that I created. If I click down here, now I've got that layer back, so I can make further adjustments if I want to. Okay, so we've kind of really got this set up now. And what you're going to want to do is, of course, not lose this setup. So you're going to go to Window, Workspace, and New Workspace. And now give it a name. We'll call it David's New Workspace. And you're going to want to click to save keyboard shortcuts, menus, and toolbars, and save. And so now when you go under the window and workspace, you'll have David's New Workspace is shown right there. You can always click on a different workspace and you'll get a different layout. But this way you can always go back to under workspace and know, okay, here's the workspace that I'm most comfortable working in. This is the one that I like the most. Okay, hopefully you found that helpful and beneficial to you. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate that. Click on the little bell and click all, because I've got a whole series of training that I'm putting together and we'll be posting on the YouTube channel, and that way you'll get an alert when I post a new one. So hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.